4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2. Wrong way! Kitty, you ruined it, Mary. Start over. Lydia and I will look very foolish at the assembly if we can't do the dances. And it will be all your fault, Mary.
It will be your own fault of flirting with the dancing master and not paying attention to your lesson.
I have no intention of dancing at the assembly. I would much rather spend my time with a book.
Father, make Mary dance with us.
Now, Kitty, you be the man.
You be the man. You're tallest.
Such news!
What is it, my love?
The neighbouring estate at Netherfield has been let at last to a single young man of good fortune. 4,000 or 5,000 a year!
And what is that to me?
You must know I plan to marry one of the girls to him.
For it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife.
What was his name, Mamma?
Yes, his name.
Mr. Bingley! Kitty! Bingley! Lydia! Bingley!
What nonsense. You haven't even seen him.
You must go to visit him at once, Mr. Bennet, to stake out a claim for one of our daughters. The Lucases will be desperate to marry their Charlotte to him, though I'm sure he could never admire such a very plain girl. Mom, I know she is your particular friend, Lizzie, but you must know she is very plain. Her own mother agrees with me. Do go at once and visit him, Mr. Bennet.
I will do no such thing.
But why?
I have already met Mr. Bingley.
Where did you meet him?
At the Lucases. He died there yesterday.
I knew it was already too late. What was he like, Papa?
Very agreeable.
But what did he look like, Papa?
He wears a blue coat and rides a black horse.
That's hardly a description at all. I, for one, like a man in a blue coat. I, for one, prefer a red coat. We feared you would not arrive in time for the ball, brother.
And miss the opportunity to dance with our 5 beautiful nieces at the Merited Assembly. Preposterous!
All night I was in a nervous fever about the silk roses on the girls' dancing slippers. Poor thing. Well, you may sleep soundly tonight. I have them right here, along with a few other little things. Prezzies! Eliza, Jane, how well you both look. Don't you think so, dear?
Ready to break some hearts at the ball, I think.
And I do hope our Eliza has been taking many good, long, thoughtful walks. I have.
Jane, you remind me so much of your mother when she was your age.
What nonsense! Dear brother, you flatter me. Jane is the most beautiful of all my daughters. This is not in dispute. And after her, Kitty. But Lydia has the best nature, I'm sure. And Elizabeth has a certain rustic quality that in some settings is not unattractive. And Mary? Where is Mary? Oh, yes, Mary!
gladly join us. I know it is a hardship, my dear, but you must learn to pretend to enjoy yourself.
Every impulse of feeling must be guided by reason. I will forbear to dance if I must. Society has claims on us all.
Oh, but wait, I have such news. Oh, Mr. Bennet. If I can but see one of our daughters happily married to Mr. Bingley and settled at Netherfield, and all the others equally well married, but I shall have nothing to wish for.
I shall assure Mr. Bingley of my hearty consent to his marrying whichever he chooses of the girls. Though I must throw in a good word for my Lizzie.
You are always giving her the preference. Lizzie is not one bit better than the others. You take delight in vexing me. You have no compassion on my poor nerves.
I have a high respect for your nerves, my dear. They have been my old friends these 23 years.
My daughters. This is Lydia, my youngest. Kitty, Mary, Elizabeth, and Jane, the eldest.
May I invite Miss Jane Bennet to dance the next to Mrs. Bennet?
Why, certainly, Mr. Bingley, you may. Now here comes Charlotte Lucas, hoping to steal Mr. Bingley away, no doubt. Well, too late, my dear. Too late.
Mother, Eliza, Charlotte! What a lovely flush you have to your cheeks. I believe you have been dancing.
Would you believe I danced the first two with Mr. Bingley?
Well, no, did you hear that, Mamma? Charlotte danced the first two with Mr. Bingley.
Why, of course! We had not yet arrived. And she won't have to dance the first two with someone.
What is he like?
Very handsome and very agreeable.
And with a very good fortune, too, do not forget.
But I see he's found a new partner.
No matter. He is not outside. Who is that gentleman over there?
A friend of Mr. Bingley's. He danced the first with Mr. Bingley's sister Caroline, the one in the beautiful copper-coloured gown. But he's above being pleased with our country manners.
Please, allow me to introduce Miss Jane Bennet. Miss Bennet, this is my sister Caroline Bingley. And this is my friend, Mr. Darcy. Come, Darcy. I must have you dance. I hate to see you stand about in this stupid manner. Oh, you much better dance.
You know how I detest it unless I am particularly acquainted with my partner. Your sister is engaged in conversation. There is no other woman present with whom it would not be a punishment to dance.
Upon my honor, I never met with so many pleasant girls in my life. Several of them are uncommonly pretty.
You are dancing with the only handsome girl here.
She's the most beautiful creature I ever beheld. But look, there is one of her sisters, Elizabeth Bennet.
She is tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me. Now go back to your partner and enjoy her smiles. You are wasting your time with me.
Pity poor Eliza, not handsome enough to dance with him.
Now, Charlotte, you did end that I was tolerable.
Tolerable? You were better
pity that dancing is popular in such unpolished society. Did you agree, Mr. Darcy?
Any savage can dance, Miss Bingley.
I can guess what you are thinking.
Can you indeed?
And I am in complete agreement. I was never more annoyed. The insipidity, and yet the noise, the nothingness, and yet the self-importance of all these people. How insufferable it would be to spend much time in such society.
I'm afraid you are mistaken. I was thinking, what pleasure a pair of fine eyes in the face of a pretty woman can bestow.
And what lady has inspired such a reflection?
That one.
Which?
Miss Elizabeth Bennet.
He's looking shocking.
No doubt he's found some additional defect in me to criticize.
Oh, Darcy, you do make me laugh. I thought for a moment you were serious. Tell me then, when am I to wish you joy?
What a vain and disagreeable man.
My mother heard that he has 10,000 a year and one of the grandest estates in the country. So he has a right to be proud.
I could easily forgive his pride if he had not mortified mine.
Lizzie! Hello, Charlotte.
We've danced every dance since we arrived.
Mr. Bingley says he'll host a private ball at Netherfield
As soon as he is settled.
and the regiment is coming to the village any day.
So there'll be plenty of partners for everyone.
Even for you, Charlotte.
Lydia! I'd have you know Charlotte was Mr. Bingley's first choice.
Well, it looks as though he prefers his second.
I was very flattered when he asked to dance with me a second time.
He could not help but see you were 5 times as pretty as every other woman in the room.
Dear Lizzie,
Well, I permit you to like him. Like many a stupider person. But you never see a fault in anybody. I've never heard you speak ill of another human being.
I always speak what I think.
And that, dear Jane, is the wonder of your good sense to be blind to the follies and nonsense of others. I suppose you liked his sister, Miss Bingley?
She was beautiful, don't you think? And very charming when you converse with her.
Really, Jane, charming. She seemed to me very conceited and proud.
You must not judge people so hastily, Lizzie.
Well, Mr. Darcy judged me rather harshly this evening.
If I may interject, you may find it useful to remember this.
Judge not!
Lest ye be judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged.
Yes, thank you, Mary. You started the evening very well, Charlotte. You were Mr. Bingley's first choice.
It's only because someone had not yet arrived.
Oh, you mean Jane, because he danced with her twice.
To be sure, it did seem as if he admired her. Indeed, I believe he did. And his sister did ask Jane to dine tomorrow at Netherfield. But however, it may all come to nothing, you know.
It may come to something if you will help him on a bit, Jane.
What do you mean?
Few men have the heart enough to really fall in love without encouragement.
But she does help him on as far as her nature will allow.
Jane, you are too good at concealing your feelings. Once you've secured him, there will be time to fall in love as much as you like.
You make me laugh, Charlotte, but it is not sound. You know it is not sound. And you would never act in this way yourself.
I would like to believe I would not, but remember, I'm 27. I'm a burden to my family.
What nonsense.
You are a great comfort to your parents, Charlotte.
Well, if you were married to Mr. Bingley tomorrow, I should think you had as good a chance of happiness as anyone. It is best to know as little as possible of the defects of the person with whom you are to pass your life.
I think it is going to rain. Jane! I have such a good idea. You must go to visit the Bingleys tomorrow on horseback, for it is likely to rain, and they will insist upon your staying all night at Netherfield.
catch it on your way there.
I had much rather go in the coach.
Oh, what a stroke of luck!
Inconvenient. If I were to be invited to visit you at Pemberley, Darcy, I would be more considerate.
Well, see who I found.
Charles! Miss Eliza Bennet. What a surprise. We did not hear your carriage on the path.
Oh, it is but a short walk. I'm happy for the exercise.
You walked. I am all astonishment. Mr. Darcy, don't you think that is astonishing? So very out of doorsy. Will you take some refreshment?
Thank you. I'm just here to inquire after my sister.
Miss Jane was very feverish last night and could not sleep. I was on my way to fetch you.
Jane, it's Lizzie. Oh, Lizzie, I'm so glad you have come. What a terrible guest I've been. Mr. Bingley has been so kind. I tried to come down for breakfast.
I'll take you home at once.
Shall we call for the carriage?
Nonsense. Miss Jane must stay till she is quite well. Please, tell me you'll join us for dinner.
Thank you, Mr. Bingley. Jane, we should get you to bed. Could you show me the way?
Of course. And to brighten up the sick room.
Charles! What can Miss Eliza Bennet mean by scampering about the country? 3 miles, or 4 miles, or 5 miles, or whatever it is. And alone. And her petticoat. I hope you saw her petticoat. 6 inches deep in mud. I could hardly keep my countenance. You observed it, Mr. Darcy, I am sure. It seems clear that Miss Eliza has neither beauty, nor accomplishments, nor charm. She has nothing, in short, to recommend her but being an excellent walker. Oh, there you are, Miss Bennet. You are such a church mouse.
Please, make yourself at home, Miss Bennet.
Yes, do come sit here by me. Only, do take care. The upholstery on the chaise is new, and it would be a shame.
Caroline! Would you like some tea, Miss Bennet?
Or can I fetch you a book? You do have a bookish air about you. Or shall we play cards? I am wild for Vonkt une.
A book would be fine.
I see. Miss Eliza Bennet despises cards. She's a great reader and has no pleasure in anything else.
I deserve neither such praise nor such censure. I am not a great reader, and I find pleasure in many things.
Darcy here is always buying books. He has a magnificent library at Pemberley, don't you, Darcy?
It ought to be good. It's been the work of many generations.
I long to visit with you, Darcy. I cannot wait to see you in your natural setting. You must visit Pemberley Estate, Miss Bennet. In summer, when Darcy is away from home, it is open for public viewing. Just enquire with the housekeeper. She loves to show the tourists about.
Have you ever been to Derbyshire before, Miss Bennet? It's lovely country.
And I hear there are so many excellent long walks where we all know how fond you are of walking.
And it's only, what, Darcy, 3 days' journey?
I have not been that far north, though my aunt is from Lambton.
And where does she reside now?
London, Cheapside. My uncle is in trade.
Cheapside? Darcy, do you write to your sister Georgiana? Pray, tell her I long to see her, and I am delighted to hear of her improvement on the harp. I'm afraid you do not like your pen. Let me mend it for you. I mend pens remarkably well.
Thank you, but I always mend my own.
I say, you write uncommonly fast.
You are mistaken, I write rather slowly.
Charles writes in the most careless way imaginable. He leaves out half his words and blots the rest.
My ideas flow so rapidly I have not time to express them. So sometimes my letters convey no ideas at all.
Your humility is unimpeachable, Mr. Bingley.
Nothing is more deceitful than false modesty. It is usually an indirect boast. You are only proud of your defects in writing, Bingley, because you believe they make you more interesting.
I think we should let Mr. Darcy return to his letter, don't you? Miss Bennet, why don't you join me in taking a turn about the room? It is most refreshing. By the by, Charles, were you really serious when you said you would hold a dance at Netherfield? There are some of us present who might find a ball rather a punishment than a pleasure.
If you mean Darcy, he may go to bed if he chooses. As soon as Miss Jane is well, I will send around my cards.
Won't you join us, Mr. Darcy?
I believe that would defeat your purpose.
What can he mean, do you think, Miss Bennet?
I think he means to be severe with us, and the best way to disappoint him will be to ask nothing about it.
No, that will not do. I demand an explanation, Mr. Darcy.
Well, I can only suppose that your motive in walking up and down the room is to show your figures to best advantage, in which case I can admire them much better from here.
Shocking! I have never heard anything so abominable. How shall we punish him?
Nothing so easy. Tease him. Laugh at him. You must know his weaknesses.
What? Laugh at Mr. Darcy? I think not. He is a fortress, impenetrable.
In a fortress, impenetrability is a strength, indeed. But in a person, I would argue that is a weakness.
I avoid those weaknesses that expose a strong understanding to ridicule.
Such as vanity and pride.
Vanity is a weakness indeed, but where there is real superiority of mind, pride will always be under good regulation.
Well, it appears Mr. Darcy has no defect. He admits it himself.
I have faults enough. I cannot forget the follies and vices of others so soon as I ought, nor their offences against me. My temper could perhaps be called resentful. My good opinion once lost is lost forever.
Well, you have chosen your faults well. I really cannot laugh at them. You are safe from me.
Every disposition has a tendency to some defect.
And your defect is a propensity to hate everybody.
And yours is willfully to misunderstand me.
Listen to the two of you, sparring away like young lovers.
I must check on Jane.
May I have this dance, Miss Bennet?
Do not think that I move this way in order to beg a partner. I have no intention of dancing.
Is your sister feeling better?
She is feeling quite well enough to return home, and she's just getting dressed. I was just here to ask Mr. Bingley if we might go in his carriage.
Of course, I'll take you myself.
My carriage is at your disposal. It's larger.
I'm sure Mr. Bingley's carriage is perfectly adequate.
As you will.
already? Oh, Jane, I must confess, I've never been so happy to leave a place.
Would you care for anything else, Mr. Collins? If we had known you were coming, I would have planned 2 full courses for luncheon.
I thank you for your consideration, but
But alas! Mr. Bennet neglected to inform us of your arrival.
May I assure you, madam, I am replete. Pray, to which of my fair cousins may I ascribe the excellence of the cookery?
We are perfectly able to keep a cook, Mr. Collins. My girls have nothing to do in the kitchen apart from the mince pies at Christmas.
Oh, if I have given any offense, I am simply mortified. Please, accept my most humble apology.
No offense has been taken.
And so, Mr. Collins, to what purpose do we owe the pleasure of your visit?
The unfortunate circumstance of my being named to inherit your estate after your death has, I assure you, cousin, always given me much uneasiness. And so, I wish to extend the olive branch, which I hope you will not reject.
That is very thoughtful of you, Mr. Collins. I warmly welcome you to Longbourn as my guest. And when I am dead, which I fear may not be for several years, you will welcome the occasional appearance of my ghost in the library.
Having received ordination this Easter, I have been so fortunate as to be honored by the patronage of Lady Catherine de Bourgh, whose bounty and beneficence have preferred to me the valuable rectory of her parish.
You are very fortunate in your patroness, Mr. Collins.
I have never in my life witnessed such behavior in a person of rank, such affability and condescension as I have experienced from Lady Catherine.
You mentioned she was a widow, sir. Does she have any family?
She has but one daughter, Lady Anne. Sadly, her indifferent state of health prevents her from being presented at court, depriving the nation of its brightest ornament. These kind of little delicate compliments please her ladyship.
May I ask whether these pleasing attentions proceed from the impulse of the moment or are the result of previous study?
They arise chiefly from what is present at the time. Though, when I do prepare such compliments in advance, I endeavor to give them as unstudied an air as possible.
Highly commendable.
May I offer my compliments on your elegant furnishings?
You mean to keep those too, do you?
Won't you join me in the library, Mr. Collins?
With pleasure. Ladies. 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 Do you have any rare? You would not happen to have an inventory at hand, would you? My patroness has charged me with the honor of cataloging her extensive library, which includes a mezzanine.
How grand!
About as if he already owns the place and everything in it. Why should he inherit Longbourn? It is so unfair.
It is not the fault of Mr. Collins that he is entitled to the estate. If we had a brother to inherit...
Oh, so it's my fault, is it? My fault that I was so unlucky as to have 5 daughters.
Mother! Mama! Do not be so severe. Mr. Collins has only expressed good intentions.
I will not have his name be spoken in this house. It is like a knife in my heart. Oh, my poor nerves! No one knows how I suffer. I am going to bed. You must excuse me. It is my poor nerves, you see. You understand that your visit has put me in mind of the dreadful day in which my husband is dead. And you shall take possession of Longbourn. And we shall be penniless and without a roof over our heads.
It is on precisely this matter that I wish to speak with you, madam. If I might have a quiet word. As you are aware, I have recently come to be entrusted with an excellent living and a humble but comfortable parsonage house in Kent. It is my intention, Mrs. Bennet, to atone for my inheritance by taking one of your daughters to wife.
Do go on, Mr. Collins.
It has come to my attention that your eldest has the ideal qualities of grace, composure, and beauty that I seek.
Jane! Why, I thank you, sir, for your compliment. But I feel I may just mention, I fear she is very soon to be engaged to our neighbour, Mr. Bingley.
I see. Well, in that case, one of the others will do almost equally well.
My daughter Lizzie is next in age and, in a certain light, in beauty. Lizzie, come here this moment.
She and Jane have left for the village, Mama.
We're off to catch up with them. Mary! Quickly, you must go to the village with Mr. Collins. Come along, Harry. Go. Shoo, shoo. most difficult temperament. She will learn her place as the wife of a clergyman. And it will be a very good joke, I dare say, on that horrid Mr. Collins to have such a wife.
Mrs. Bennet, such demonstrations of your wit never cease to surprise.
If I might have a word.
Won't you catch your breath first, sir?
You are quite right. I will take the advice of my most sensible, considerate cousin.
Mr. Wickham, this is our cousin, Mr. Collins. He has recently taken his leave and has been established in a parsonage in Kent, near Rosings Park.
The home of Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Do you know her ladyship, sir?
I have met her, though I was just a boy at the time. Is she as imposing a figure as I remember her?
Indeed, sir. She is the sort of woman whom one cannot regard with too much deference.
It is a strange coincidence, sir. But I thought I saw her carriage only this morning.
Where, sir?
Here, sir.
Was it the barouche, or perhaps the phaeton? For her ladyship has several conveyances.
The phaeton, I think. Look, is that it over there, sir?
Where, sir?
There, by the milliners.
I will investigate at once. Ladies.
Well, I say, a full complement of Miss Bennet. We were on our way to Longbourn to inquire after your health. But I must say, Miss Bennet, you look most remarkably well.
I have been enjoying some exercise.
Have you received my invitation to the ball at Netherfield?
With great pleasure.
Darcy, come see who I found.
Oh, this is Mr. Wickham, whom we have just met.
I must be off. Goodbye, Mr. Wickham, sir. Goodbye, Miss Bennet. Miss Bennet. Miss Bennet. Miss Bennet. Miss Bennet. Miss Bennet.
That man thinks he's so important he's above common decency. What shocking rudeness.
Think nothing of it. I certainly don't. Darcy and I have a little history, that's all. Do you know him well?
As well as I wish to.
You mustn't blame him for his arrogance. It's a family trait. After all, his aunt is Lady Catherine de Bourgh, and Darcy's meant to marry her daughter, Lady Anne.
No!
Yes. Even as a child, I found her snobbery ridiculous, her taste questionable, and the company she kept very peculiar. She surrounded herself with lackeys and flatterers to puff up her importance. You're blushing. Have I shocked you?
I'm virtually unshockable, I assure you. Ask anybody.
I only hope you don't think me cruel. I can not abide cruelty.
So long as you speak the truth, I see no reason why you should not speak your mind.
But still, I would hate to give offense. I'll be more careful in the future.
Please, do not on my account. I will not inquire further as to the matter between you and Mr. Darcy, although if you wish to tell me, I have no objection to hearing it.
Some other time, perhaps.
Will we see you at the ball at Netherfield? You are most certainly a favourite of my sister's, and we have had such a shortage of partners for dancing. I hope Mr. Darcy will not keep you away.
If he wishes to avoid seeing me, he must go. I would not miss it for anything. Will you save the first 2 dances for me?
It would be my pleasure, sir.
I will do my best to not make you blush so prettily. Until then.
I'm sure Mr. Wickham will be here soon, Lizzie.
Jane, go dance with Mr. Bingley. I'll be fine.
Lizzie! I have terrible news to tell you. Wickham has been called away to town and won't be able to come to the ball. Lydia! It was my news to tell!
Girls, are you in favour of dancing, Mr. Collins? Does the Archbishop approve?
I believe it to be a harmless recreation when the societies of respectable nature.
I agree. I think it is no sacrifice to occasionally join in evening engagements.
Indeed. I am so far from objecting to dancing that I hope Miss Bennet to solicit your hand for the next dance, fair cousin.
Oh, what? But, Oh, very well.
Apologies.
May I apply to you for the next dance, Miss Bennet?
I thought you despised dancing, Mr. Darcy.
What gave you this impression?
I heard you say so. You likened it to a kind of torture, unless you were especially acquainted with your partner.
We are specially acquainted, Miss Bennet.
The musicians play very well, don't you think? Now you should say something.
Whatever you wish me to say shall be said.
As a reply will do for the present, now we may be silent.
You talk by rule then while you are dancing.
Sometimes. One must talk a little, you know, it's just good manners.
You and your sisters often walk to the village.
Very often. When you met us there, we had just been forming a new acquaintance.
Mr. Wickham has a talent for making friends. Whether he is capable of retaining them.
He has been so unlucky as to lose your friendship. He once said that you hardly ever forgave, that your good opinion once lost was lost for good.
Yes.
I suppose then you never allow yourself to be blinded by prejudice?
May I ask to what these questions tend?
I'm trying to sketch out your character.
I would prefer that you not sketch my character at the present moment, Miss Bennet.
But if I do not take your likeness now, then we never have another opportunity.
No, indeed.
Oh, your brother is such a charming young man! And so rich! 4,000 or 5,000 a year, is it? And living but 3 miles away from Longbourn. Jane's marrying so greatly will throw the younger girls in the way of other rich men. For I'm sure you and your brother know many of the first rank. Oh, there will be such a ball here at Netherfield on their wedding day.
Mother, may I speak with you for a moment?
What is it, Lizzie? I'm talking with Miss Bingley, who is very nearly a relation already.
For heaven's sake, Mother, speak lower, please.
You think I'm afraid of being overheard by Mr. Darcy? I should say not. He means nothing to me, fancying himself so very great. It would be a misfortune to be liked by him.
Oh, Lord, the dinner would come and put an end to this display. I'm dying of hunger.
Did you know that Mr. Collins means to marry my Lizzie? 2 daughters married in such a short span. No, I'm so angry.
May I take you into dinner, Cousin Elizabeth?
Oh, I'm afraid I'm not very hungry, Mr. Collins. I have a bit of a headache, and I hope you will excuse me. I think I will wait here where it is quiet until dinner is over.
Then I shall stay here until the end of the evening. For you see, my chief object is to recommend myself to you through such delicate attentions as these.
That's really not necessary, Mr. Collins, I assure you. I will be into dinner in a moment, I promise.
Your elegant protestations are delightful and convince me to stay.
Charlotte! Charlotte! I was just trying to convince Mr. Collins to go into dinner without me. Perhaps you could stay with me so that he might go in, and we will follow you directly, Mr. Collins.
Cousin Elizabeth, I consider your concern for me most commendable. It adds to your other perfections.
Mr. Collins, I have no one to take me into the dining room. Might I impose upon you?
I am very much engaged at present, as you can see, Miss Lucas.
I think that my father, Sir William Lucas, would be most delighted to hear of your intimate connection with Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Oh! Well, in that case, I feel it would show a duty to a person of rank. Will you permit me to leave you, Miss Bennet?
very late evening, but a very successful one. Don't you agree, Mr. Collins?
Yes, I felt most at home at Netherfield, which is just as well because I suppose we will be spending all of our time there once Jane is married to Mr. Bingley.
Madam, may I solicit for the honor of a private audience with your daughter Elizabeth in the course of this morning?
Why, certainly, Mr. Collins. I'm sure she can have no objection. Lizzie! Lizzie! There you are! Come, girls, I want you upstairs. Do not go, I beg you, do not go.
There's nothing Mr. Collins needs to say to me that anybody need not hear.
I desire you will stay where you are, Elizabeth. May come at once. But I insist upon your staying and hearing Mr. Collins. Very.
Well, what have you to say, Mr. Collins?
Believe me, my dear cousin Elizabeth, that your reticence, so far from doing you any disservice, can only be added to your long list of commendable qualities. You would have been less amiable in my eyes had there not been this little unwillingness.
I beg you, sir, the sooner we warm to your subject, the sooner this will be over, and for that I will thank you.
Almost as soon as I entered this house, I singled you out as the companion for my future life.
Mr. Collins.
Being, as I am, to inherit this estate after the death of your honored father, who, however, may live many years longer, I have resolved to choose a wife from among his daughters.
That's very thoughtful of you, Mr.
And it is the express wish of my patroness, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, that I bring home a bride as soon as possible. Now, fair cousin, nothing remains for me but to assure you in the most animated language of the violence of my affection.
You are too hasty, sir. I have not yet made my answer. I thank you for the compliment, but it is impossible for me to accept.
I am aware that it is usual with young ladies to reject the addresses of the man whom they secretly mean to accept when he first applies for their favor.
Oh, upon my word, sir, you could not make me happy, and I'm convinced I'm the last woman in the world who would make you so.
I am by no means discouraged by what you have just said. And have no doubt I shall lead you to the altar ere long.
If what I have said sounds encouraging, I do not know how to express my refusal in a way that you will understand.
As you cannot be serious in your rejection, I shall choose to attribute it to your wish of increasing my love by suspense, as is the usual practice for elegant females.
I am not an elegant female, but a rational creature speaking the truth from her heart. To accept your proposal is utterly impossible. My feelings, in every respect, forbid it. Can I speak plainer?
You are uniformly charming.
Mr. Collins! Elizabeth shall be brought to reason. She is a very headstrong, foolish girl who does not know her own interest, but I will make her know it.
Madam, if I may interrupt, if she is, as you say, headstrong and foolish, she may not be a desirable wife for a man in my situation.
You misunderstand me, sir. I only mean to say she is headstrong in matters such as these. In everything else, she's as good-natured a girl as ever lived. Mr. Bennet will settle the matter. Mr. Bennet! Mr. Bennet! Will you excuse us, Mr. Collins?
Of course.
What is it?
We are all in an uproar! You must persuade Lizzie to marry Mr. Collins!
I have not the pleasure of understanding you. Of what are you talking?
Of Mr. Collins and Lizzie. Lizzie declares she will not have Mr. Collins. And Mr. Collins begins to say he will not have Lizzie.
Well, then it seems a hopeless business.
Speak to her. Tell her you insist upon her marrying him.
I understand that Mr. Collins has made you an offer of marriage, and that you have refused him. Is this so?
Yes, sir.
Your mother insists upon your accepting him. Is this not true, Mrs. Bennet?
Yes! Or I will never see her again.
An unhappy alternative is before you, Elizabeth. From this day, you must be a stranger to one of your parents. Your mother will never see you again if you do not marry Mr. Collins, and I will never see you again if you do.
Oh, it is so like you to never take my side! What will we do when you're dead, Mr. Bennet? How will we live?
Oh, rest easy, my love. With any luck, I will outlive you.
I'm only here with mail. Have I come at a bad time?
Miss Lucas, your timing is impeccable. Thank you, my dear.
Charlotte, what do you think has happened this morning? Mr. Collins has asked for Lizzie's hat, and she will not have him. You like Jane first, but Mama said she was taken, so Lizzie was next in line. Mary's next, I'm sure. I only pray she'll accept him, so he'll never work his way down to us.
Charlotte, you must persuade Lizzie to marry Mr. Collins. If she does not, he will throw us out, for Mr. Bennet's body is quite cold.
Is this true, Lizzie? He's proposed.
Mr. Collins! Mr. Bennet refused to take my side. He has no compassion on my poor
The sole object of my visit has been to secure an amiable companion for myself, with due consideration for the advantage of all your family. If my manner has been at all reprehensible, I here beg leave to apologize. I will send for my trunk this afternoon.
I'm walking to the village this morning, Mr. Collins. Would you like to accompany me?
Yes, Miss Lucas, I accept your offer. As I take my leave reluctantly, I wish all my fair cousins health and happiness, not excepting my cousin Elizabeth.
Oh, thank heavens.
Oh, Lord, what a horrid man! And now that spinster Charlotte Lucas has her hooks in him. I could not live to see her become mistress of my heart.
Mother, they were only good for a walk.
Mr. Collins is a very decent and good sort of man. I find his earnestness is quite endearing.
Oh, Mary, he's a most appalling bore.
And a terrible dancer! He is not a clever man, and for this we should pity him. But with application and the exposure to the right books, and a patient wife, I see no reason that Mr. Collins could not prove a very serviceable companion.
Thank you not to laugh at me. Mr. Wickham's coming up the
We were longing for you at the ball, Mr. Wickham.
And yet we are partners for every dance. So many officers.
It sounds like a wonderful evening.
It was. I danced so much, I strained my ankle. See?
Lydia, shocking! I strained mine as well!
And I'll never be able to make it all the way to the village this morning unless I have a strong arm to lean upon, Mr. Wickham.
I'd be delighted to offer the invalids my assistance.
We'll get our things. Lydia! Your dress!
Well,
Well,
it's very quiet all of a sudden.
that, sir, is very rare in this house. Enjoy it while you can.
I've come to apologize
Apologize.
for not going to the ball when I told you I would be there.
Well, you were missed.
I am ashamed of myself. It was inexcusable, but I knew Darcy would be there, and you must think I'm a coward.
Not at all. But why are you afraid of him?
I'm not afraid of him. He has already done his worst to injure me, yet here I am. But he is a very rich and powerful man with a violent temper. If he were to observe,
What?
if at the ball he were to see that there was an attachment between us, I'm too presumptuous, forgive me. I should not assume that you share.
What?
You will have me say it. Fine. I will show you some courage and attempt to redeem myself. I should not assume that you share my feelings, Miss Eliza. We have met but once, and yet I find myself speaking to you constantly in my mind, thinking up things to amuse you so that I might see your bewitching smile again.
Oh,
I only fear that Darcy might try to somehow injure or manipulate you in order to wound me. He is not above such behavior.
I am very touched by your thoughtful concern for me, Mr. Wickham. But it is hard for me to believe that Mr. Darcy is as bad as all that. Can it be true?
I'm afraid it is.
You must tell me.
Darcy and I grew up together under the same roof at his family estate at Pemberley, which my father managed. Darcy's father grew very attached to me and left me a generous legacy in his will, which Darcy chose to give elsewhere.
But how could his father's will be disregarded?
What can I say? If the father had liked me less, the son might have liked me more.
What is it, Jane? What's the matter?
Lizzie, I hardly know what to think. Here, you read it from Miss Bingley.
I'll take my leave.
No, stay, please. Stay.
They have all left Netherfield for London today. The Bingleys, Mr. Darcy, without any intention of returning. She says that Mr. Bingley is anxious to meet Darcy's sister, Georgiana. That she expects that they will soon be engaged. Well, what do you think? Is it not clear enough? Caroline is perfectly convinced of her brother's indifference to me. I must have been mistaken in his affections.
Oh, Jane, no one who saw you and Mr. Bingley together could doubt his affection for you. His sister sees that he is in love with you, and we are not rich enough or grand enough for them. Oh, Jane, are you all right?
It will not last long. He'll be forgotten. Everything will be as it was before.
But why should his happiness be sacrificed at the whim of his sister?
Let us talk of him no more, please. No more. That chapter's quite close.
We have all been so ill since you were last here. 2 of my daughters on the point of marriage, and yet nothing to come of it. The only comfort I have is that I'm sure Jane will die of a broken heart. And then he will feel sorry for what he's done.
Ma! Poor thing. Such misfortunes must be very difficult on your nerves.
I don't think they've ever been so poorly. I don't get a wink of sleep, not a wink. I'm sorry. Just speaking of it gives me a headache. And a twitch. Do you see?
Why don't you go lie down? Try to rest your eyes for a little while. I will look after things here.
Oh, dear friend, you are too good to me. I will take your advice.
You are too good to us all, Aunt. Poor Jane. I'm so sorry that her match has broken off. But, well, we've all had our hearts broken.
What, you?
Oh, yes. More than once. And your uncle. How many times, dear?
What, dear?
How many times have you suffered a broken heart?
Upwards of 60.
Come now, Uncle.
Though only 45 of these were serious enough to affect my appetite.
A young man so easily often falls in love with a pretty girl for a few weeks, and when accident separates them, so easily forgets her.
Jane does not suffer by accident, Aunt. It is through considerable effort on the part of his friends that Mr. Bingley has been persuaded to forget her.
Poor pet. She will not get over it soon, I think.
We will persuade Jane to return with us to London for a few months so that she may properly forget.
Mr. Wickham, you mustn't let Lydia torment you so. She's such a terrible flirt.
I don't mind. I always wished for a younger sister, so to be welcomed to a house full is like a dream come true.
Charlotte, what have you there?
I'm afraid I've brought these pies. Can I help with anything, Eliza?
Can you make a bow? You make such good ones.
Is Jane all right? Any news from Mr. Bingley?
It seems Mr. Bingley is soon to be engaged to Mr. Darcy's younger sister.
No.
I simply can't understand it. He and Jane were so violently in love.
Come, Eliza, that phrase, violently in love, is so hackneyed.
I, for one, hope it is not.
Mr. Collins has asked for my hand, and I have accepted him.
Oh, Charlotte, I so needed to laugh, thank you. You're not serious?
Mr. Collins and I are engaged to be married.
My dear Charlotte, engaged to Mr. Collins? Impossible.
Why should you be surprised? Because he did not succeed with you? I am not a romantic, you know. I never was. I ask only a comfortable home, and I'm convinced that my chance of happiness with him is as fair as most married people can boast.
But Charlotte, what of love?
What of it? I've never felt it for any man to a great degree. Certainly not to the degree one reads of in books.
But you would feel it if only you waited to meet the right man.
And how much longer do you think it would be prudent for me to wait?
But I've always admired you for your good sense, your clear-headedness.
And it is because of this that I've accepted him. You must see, Eliza, that an acceptance based on a clear head is at least equal to one made by a foolish heart. Must relationships built on lifelong companionship and mutual help be naturally inferior to those that are the work of an instant, a glance across a crowded room?
Of course not. No, wait, yes.
Do you think that a superficial attraction has a greater chance for success over a lifetime? Or might it be more likely that a man and woman brought together in an instant may grow apart?
But just think how happy Jane and Mr. Bingley were together.
And how happy are they now? Eliza, I'm sorry. I know that you're angry, but I'm doing my best to provide for my own future. If you cannot respect me for it, it is my loss indeed, for you are my dearest friend, and I would rather almost anything than disappoint you.
Fine, you have my blessing.
I don't need your blessing. I didn't come here to ask for it. I only wanted to share my happiness.
Oh, Charlotte, I'm a thoughtless person,
But you will only speak from the heart, and never against your own conscience. And it is for this that I love you. Please don't tell anyone. Mr. Collins wants to surprise you all. Promise to visit me in the spring in Hunsford. There, in a few months' time, I promise you, you will find us happy.
What is it, Lizzie?
The more I see of the world, Father, the more I am dissatisfied with it. The inconstancy of all human characters and the little dependency can be placed on either merit or sense. Charlotte engaged to Mr. Collins.
Charlotte Lucas has always been a friend of this family. And when Mr. Collins inherits the estate,
Father, please.
and Charlotte is mistress at Longbourn, you may be glad that she is your friend.
We should go greet our guests.
Yes, I suppose we must. Let us get this business over with. Why do you laugh?
You sound like Mr. Darcy.
As you can see, cousin, this narrow lane is the only separation between the gardens of our humble abode and the grandeur that is Rosings Park. And now we approach the finest view of Lady Catherine's estate. Her ladyship feels the best aspect of her house is from the meadow. Allow me to escort you, cousin.
Eliza does not have the proper shoes for walking in the meadow, dear.
My dear Charlotte, you are quite right. I think that you can see, Cousin Elizabeth, that I am the luckiest and happiest of men to have found such an amiable wife. And I have your rejection to thank for my wonderful good fortune. Oh, and I should add, do not make yourself uneasy about your apparel. Lady Catherine likes to have the distinction of rank preserved.
She means well by it, Eliza.
I know. As much as I hate to admit it, you really have done very well, Charlotte. Your humble abode is charming. And he does all the gardening himself.
Oh, yes. Lady Catherine has recommended gardening as a very respectable and healthful exercise, so he's taken it up at the exclusion of any other pursuit. I encourage it as much as possible.
And who is that? That Lady Catherine?
That is her daughter, Lady Anderberg.
The one to be engaged to Mr. Darcy? She is quite a little creature. Yes, I like her appearance. I think she will do for Mr. Darcy very well. I think she will make him a very proper wife.
Make haste, make haste!
Lady Catherine is not like to be kept waiting.
Mrs. Collins! You are feeding your chickens barley groats?
Yes, Lady Catherine.
And your hens are now laying?
No, Lady Catherine.
Impossible! Had you followed my instructions properly, they were to begin to lay on St. Valentine's Day.
Yes, Lady Catherine.
I shall condescend to visit the parsonage tomorrow, and shall personally review the quality of your barley groats.
Yes, thank you, Lady Catherine. You are most kind.
Indeed. Miss Bennet! Why do you visit in the spring, when the summer is the best time? It is a very singular decision.
I came down from London, where I was visiting my aunt and uncle, with Sir William, Charlotte's father.
Sir William keeps a post-chaise, your ladyship.
And I have told him he must invest at once in a proper barouche. Post-chaise is terribly common. How many sisters do you have?
I am the second of 5 daughters.
And of course there are no sons. The estate is to be inherited by Mr. Collins. How many of your sisters are married?
We are all of us unmarried.
And which of your sisters are out?
We are all of us out.
What? All 5 out at once? The younger one's out before the elder are married?
I think it would be very hard upon my younger sisters to be kept back from the pleasures of youth because the older ones had not yet had the opportunity to marry.
Upon my word, you do give your opinion very decidedly for one so young.
My apologies.
Darcy, you are too late. We have already done.
I thank you, Aunt, but I ate along the way at a chop house.
A chop house? This is my nephew, Fitzwilliam Darcy. He's been engaged to my daughter, Lady Anne.
Good evening, Miss Bennet.
Hey, how is it possible you have met this young Lady Darcy? Surely she does not move in your circle.
We met at an assembly when I was in Hertfordshire last summer. How is your family, Miss Bennet?
Quite well, thank you. My elder sister has been in town these 3 months past. You did not happen to see her there during your stay?
I was not so fortunate as to see Miss Bennet.
Of what are you talking?
Speak aloud. Let me hear what it is, so that I may have my share of the conversation.
My sister has been in town with my aunt and uncle for the past 3 months, yet she never happened to see Mr. Darcy or her 2 friends.
In what part of town do your relations reside?
Cheapside.
Ah. Well, that quite explains it. For Darcy stops in Mayfair, do not Darcy. It is quite a different part of town.
It is.
Yes, that must explain it.
Darcy, how does your sister Georgiana get on with the harp?
Very well, Aunt.
Pray, tell her from me that she cannot expect to excel if she does not practice a great deal.
I assure you, madam, she needs no such advice. She practices very constantly.
I am glad to hear it. Do you play and sing, Miss Bennet?
A little.
Then you shall favour us now. If I had ever learned, I should have been a great proficient. So would Anne, if her health had allowed. Miss Bennet, did you hear what I'm saying? You will never be truly proficient unless you practice more.
Do you mean to frighten me, Mr. Darcy? I will warn you my courage rises with every attempt to intimidate me.
I have had the pleasure of your acquaintance long enough to know that you enjoy professing opinions which are, in fact, not your own.
Provoke me to retaliate, and some things may come out as will shock your relations to hear.
I'm not afraid of you.
So how have you passed your time in town? Dancing, of course.
Why, of course.
Because of your insistence on being especially acquainted with your partner?
I have not the talent for conversing easily with new acquaintances.
I do not play this instrument as well as I would like, but then I've always supposed it to be my own fault for not taking the trouble of practicing.
You are perfectly right. We neither of us perform to strangers.
Miss Bennet has a very good notion of fingering, though her taste is not equal to Anne's. Darcy, that friend of yours, Bingley, did you manage to break off his imprudent engagement to the country girl with the low connections? Did you save him from the inconvenience of this mistaken attachment?
Yes, Aunt.
I am glad to hear it. He is fortunate to have you to look after him. Come along. We are moving to the blue room. Miss Bennet, you may continue to entertain us where you are.
In vain. have I struggled? It will not do. My feelings will not be repressed. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you. I have done all that I can to conquer this powerful feeling that I have. It goes against every scruple of rational thought and common sense. Your family being as it is without connection. The appalling behavior of your sisters, your mother. But I assure you, I am content to suffer all this. And the judgment of my own family and friends. If you will do me the honor of becoming my wife.
It is customary to express gratitude for such an offer. But my feelings are so far removed from the sentiment that it is impossible. I've never desired your good opinion. You have certainly bestowed it most unwillingly. Any pain I have caused you is unintentional, and I hope will be of short duration.
And this is all the reply to which I am to have the honor of expecting. I might perhaps wish to be informed why with so little civility I am rejected.
I might ask why, with so evident a design of offending and insulting me, you chose to tell me that you liked me against your will, against your reason, and even against your character. You insult my family, and worse. By your own design, I find have ruined forever the happiness of my most beloved sister Jane. The sweetest and best person in the world who never deserved such treatment. Can you deny your part in her separation from Mr. Bingley? Can you deny that you have done it?
I have no wish of denying that I did everything in my power to separate your sister from my friend, and that I rejoiced in my success. I've been kinder towards him than I've been towards myself.
And what of the misfortunes of Mr. Wickham, also by your hand?
Oh yes, his misfortunes have been very great indeed.
You have disregarded what has been said in your own father's will, and yet you can treat the mention of his misfortune with contempt and ridicule. Incredible.
And this is your opinion of me. I thank you for explaining it so fully. My faults, according to this calculation, are heavy indeed. But perhaps these offenses might have been overlooked had not your pride been hurt by my honest confession of my misgivings. But I will not be ashamed of the feelings that I related. They were natural and just.
The mode of your declaration only spared me the concern which I might have felt in refusing you, had you behaved in a more gentlemanlike manner. But you could not have made me the offer of your hand in any way that could have possibly tempted me to accept it. You are the last man in the world I could ever be prevailed upon to marry.
You have said quite enough, madam. I perfectly comprehend your feelings, and have now only to be ashamed for what mine have been. Forgive me for having taken up so much of your time. Accept my best wishes for your health and happiness. Be not alarmed, madam, on receiving this letter. I will not repeat any of those sentiments or offers which were last night so disgusting to you. I hope that you will pardon the freedom with which I demand your attention. Your feelings, I know, will bestow it unwillingly. But I demand it of your justice. You have laid 2 charges upon me, madam, and I will defend myself. The first, that I separated your sister from Mr. Bingley. I do not deny it. It pains me to say that your family's want of fortune and connection was secondary in my mind to its total lack of decorum. And your sister Jane, well, pleasant towards Bingley, showed no outer sign of being in love. You have convinced me that I was mistaken in this, and your resentment has not been unreasonable. It was never my intention to inflict pain on your sister, only to save Bingley from disappointment. I should not have interfered, and I am sorry. But I make no apology in connection with your friend Mr. Wickham and his tale of woe. My father left him a living in his will in the church, but Wickham refused to take orders, and at his own suggestion, I agreed to pay him the sum of £3,000 to resign his claim to the living. He returned within weeks, having spent the money. He now wished to take up the living after all, which I had by then given elsewhere. When he asked for more money, I ended our acquaintance. Since that time, Mr. Wickham has done all in his power to defame both myself and the name of Darcy. But there is more, and because I respect you, I will withhold nothing. Last summer, Wickham attempted to elope with my sister, Georgiana, who was but 15. His chief object was my sister's fortune, but it is clear that he was equally set on revenge upon me. Had he succeeded, his revenge would have been complete indeed. This has been a faithful narrative of every event in which we have been concerned together. And if you do not absolutely reject it as false, you will, I hope, acquit me of cruelty towards Wickham. I will only add, God bless you, Fitzwilliam Darcy.
I will only add, God bless you, Fitzwilliam Darcy.
Poor Mr. Darcy, and his poor sister. I'm glad that Mr. Darcy is not so bad as we feared. But to find out that Mr. Wickham is so very bad, it is almost past belief.
How shamefully I've acted. So proud of my own quick judgment of character.
Lizzie, are you in love with him?
Had I been in love, I could not have been more wretchedly blind.
I never thought poor Mr. Darcy so deficient as you used to.
Yet I thought myself uncommonly clever in taking such a decided dislike to him upon first sight.
But poor Mr. Wickham, there is such a gentleness and openness in his manner, and such goodness in his looks.
Really, Jane, you are too forgiving. He is a Bennet. Jane, you must tell me whether I ought to reveal what we know of Wickham's character.
To have his errors made public would ruin him forever, damage the reputation of poor Miss Darcy.
Yes, it ought not to be attempted. The information was confidential, and Wickham will soon be gone with the regiment. We will say nothing about it.
Was there anything else in the letter? Did he mention Mr. Bingley or Caroline?
No, not a word.
Oh.
I do not believe that he will be returning to Netherfield, Jane. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. It helps me to hear you say it.
Lizzie! Lizzie, did you hear? The regiment is leaving the village, moving on to Brighton.
Yes, I did hear, and I'm glad to hear it.
Klatt! It's a tragedy! It's a catastrophe! Oh, I do so want Papa to take us all there for the summer. It would be such a delicious scheme and would hardly cost a thing. Mamma would like to go too, of all things. She says a little sea bathing would set her up forever. If one could but go to Brighton. Can you picture it? Brighton, the streets teeming with officers, scores of them, like the cabs, their tents and their rows, buzzing with handsome young men in dazzling red coats, and me sitting thus with 6 or 10 officers
am fully in support of the Brighton scheme. I shall be very happy indeed if you should all take your insufferable noise as far from Longbourn as possible.
But father will not hear of it. He will not even let us speak the word Brighton in front of him.
Are you talking of Brighton?
If I hear the word Brighton spoken but once, I shall not be held accountable for my actions.
You see... Yes! I told you not to say be within Papa's hearing. If we want to convince him to take us to be,
We'll have to wait until he's in a more malleable mood. Do you understand me?
Yes, Mama. Oh, only think what a miserable summer we should all have if we must stay here.
You will have plenty to do.
It is easy for you to say, Lizzie. You will be on holiday in Derbyshire with Aunt and Uncle. Will you go to where Mr. Wickham lived with that awful Mr. Darcy?
Pemberley, I dare say we shall.
But what if Mr. Darcy is there? Then you shall have one of your headaches and not go. What a holiday that shall be, viewing the stately homes. Oh, Law, what a fine carpet! It is very fine. And look over here, some silk drapes. Those are very fine as well. And here is a portrait of the master, painted on the oak.
Yes, thank you, Lydia. You're next, Mary.
I shall defer my turn in favour of my younger sisters who prefer warm water to cool. I do not approve of bathing in general, unless it is in cold water to stimulate the circulation.
Don't you think so, dear?
Yes?
That Pemberley Park must be 10 miles around at least.
I dare say rather more.
When I was a girl, I dreamed of being mistress of this place.
Well, I'm honoured that you condescended to favour me, but an humble London merchant with your hand, my lady.
Oh, you. Well, in any case, old Mr. Darcy would have been far too old. And young Mr. Darcy would have been...
But a twinkle in his father's eye.
Yes.
Ah, there's the housekeeper. Where's Eliza got to, dear? She is our niece. She's inclined to roam.
She went down to the bridge, I think. Oh, yes, here she comes.
Mrs. Reynolds will take us around the house. Lead us on, Mrs. Reynolds.
Are you certain the family is away?
Yes, she says Mr. Darcy's not expected until tomorrow with a party of friends. How's your headache, love?
Oh, it was but a small one. It's gone away completely.
No, this room used to be my late master's favourite room, and these portraits are just as they used to be then. He was very fond of them. And now this portrait is of my master.
Is it a good likeness, Lizzie?
Does the young lady know Mr. Darcy?
A little.
And do you not think him a very handsome gentleman, ma'am?
Yes, very handsome.
I am sure I know none so handsome. Here you will see a larger picture of Miss Darcy, recently done.
What a lovely girl.
Oh, yes, the handsomest young lady that ever was seen, and so accomplished. She plays and sings all day long.
This looks very much like a gentleman you know.
Ah, that is young Mr. Wickham, son of my late master's steward. He is now gone into the army. but I'm afraid he has turned out very wild. He left many debts behind, which my master had to pay. Oh, forgive me, I should not speak of this to strangers, but I do not like that young man.
Your confidence is safe with us, Mrs. Reynolds.
Then I will tell you a secret. When the house is closed, and I am here alone, I turn his face to the wall.
Is your master much at Pemberley in the course of the year?
Oh, not so much as I could wish, sir.
If you were to marry, you may see more of him.
Yes, sir. But I do not know who is good enough for him.
Oh, well, it is very much to his credit that you think so.
I say no more than the truth. I have never had a cross word from him in my life, and I have known him ever since he was 4 years old. He was always the sweetest-tempered, most generous-hearted boy in the world.
You are lucky to have such a master.
Yes, sir, I know I am. If I was to go through the world, I could not meet with a better. Some people call him proud, but I am sure I never saw anything of it. To my fancy, it is only because he does not reckon away like other young men. Now, if you'd like to come this way.
Miss Bennet. I was looking for Mrs. Reynolds. How long have you been in Derbyshire?
A fortnight. My aunt is from Lambton.
Ah, yes.
You were not expected home until tomorrow.
I'm here now.
Yes,
And when did you leave Longbourn?
a fortnight ago.
Ah, yes. Your family was well when you left them?
Very well, thank you.
I'm glad to hear it. And Mrs. Reynolds, you say...
It's in the other room with my aunt and uncle. They like to tour the stately homes.
Do you enjoy it? Viewing stately homes?
Not at all.
Forgive me, Miss Elizabeth, I must know. Did you get my letter?
Yes,
And did you give any credit to its contents?
your letter proved that certain prejudices I had toward you were unfounded.
I regret them. Some of the things that I said may have caused you pain. Tell me you have burned the letter.
Think no more of the letter. My feelings are so...
Miss Bennet, are you all right? Will you excuse me?
Leave at once. Oh, why did we have to come here? If only I'd had my headache like I planned. Lizzie, what happened? Please, I beg you.
Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds. The view has been most enlightening.
Thank you, sir.
Miss Bennet. Will you do me the honor of introducing your relations?
Mr. Mr. Darcy. Allow me to introduce the Gardiners. Aunt, uncle, Mr. Darcy.
It is an honor, sir.
We certainly did not expect to meet you, for we heard you were away.
We have toured so many homes, and this is by far the finest. Pemberley is a great credit to you and your family.
Thank you, but all credit must go to Mrs. Reynolds for her excellent housekeeping. She looks after us all very well. Mrs. Bennet tells me... Miss Bennet tells me you lived in Lambton, Mrs. Gardiner.
Well, yes, indeed I did. And my fondest memories are of that time. We are in town now, but this is, I think, the most beautiful part of the country.
Is it as you remember it?
Oh, it is more perfect than my memory. Though, I must confess to you, sir, my brother and I went rambling every autumn on your property, and we poached a great quantity of berries. Now, whenever I taste one, I think of Derbyshire and Pemberley.
But have you ever tasted their equal?
Oh, I never have.
Mrs. Reynolds will provide you a pot from her preserves, a souvenir. You fish, sir?
I love nothing better.
There is excellent fishing in the stream. I can supply you with tackle if you care to come tomorrow. And perhaps you will stay to dinner. Mr. Bingley and his sister are coming down.
Sir.
Miss Elizabeth Bennet, allow me to introduce my sister Georgiana.
Oh, Miss Darcy.
Miss Bennet, I have heard so much about you. I feel that I know you already.
Well, I've heard that you are very accomplished, that you play both piano and harp.
I play piano a little, and the harp hardly at all.
We will beg you to play for us tomorrow, sister.
Oh dear. I will do my best, but I apologize to you in advance. Might I offer you some refreshments? Oh yes, do stay. I'm going to the music room to see the new instrument my dear brother has bought me. Would you like to see it, Miss Bennet?
I'm afraid we really must go.
No, Eliza, go and see Miss Darcy's music room. We will wait.
I'll run ahead a little and fetch your preserves.
There is something a little stately in him, but it is not unbecoming. Why did she tell us that he was so disagreeable?
He's such an unassuming young man for one so wealthy.
From what we have seen of him, it is very difficult to believe he could have been so cruel to poor Mr. Wickham.
Will 6 be too early for fishing? It is for some.
No, indeed.
It is the best time. Here is a map to the lodge. It is quite hidden. It can be difficult to find. I'll provide breakfast. Until tomorrow.
Pray, Miss Eliza, are not the militia removed from your village?
Yes, they have gone on to Braddon.
It must be a great loss to your family and, indeed, to yourself.
What a fine lady Miss Darcy is.
Yes, my brother Charles is quite head over heels.
Success?
Well...
Your husband had excellent success. You may admire it on the table in an hour.
It was a delightful morning. Miss Bennet, I cannot tell you how glad I am to see you after all this time.
Charles, don't turn to the side so I may catch your silhouette. Head up, please.
Miss Elizabeth's sister Jane spoke very fondly of you and Mr. Gardiner, that you take her with you to London each spring.
Will you keep your mouth closed, Charles?
Yes, Mr. Bingley. We rather thought we would see you at the start of the year. Jane was with us 3 months together.
3 months? I say, I wish I had known. I was in town all that time, quite miserable.
You miserable? I cannot picture it.
Charles, please, you're making it very difficult for me to capture you.
Ask Darcy, I was quite out of sorts. From the 26th November, when we all danced together at Netherfield, it was above 8 months. 243 days. Tell me, how is your sister?
I dare say she's been counting the days just as you have, Mr. Bingley.
Is she still at Longbourn? I heard she may have an attachment in the country by this time.
No, she's at home.
Caroline, did you know Jane was in town for 3 months?
Yes, of course, Charles. I'm sure I told you.
You did not tell me.
I'm certain I did tell you, but there is so much to do in town, so many people coming and going. Perhaps you forgot.
I did not forget. I certainly would have called upon her had I known. Darcy, did you know about this? Darcy!
Lower your voice, Charles.
Excuse me, miss, but this just arrived for you.
Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds. I've had a letter from my sister.
It must be lovely to have a sister. Do you share secrets and talk all through the night?
Sometimes with my sister Jane.
You are so lucky. My brother is not one for talking, as you may know. But he has been practicing very constantly to improve. But do go read your letter. I hope it is all good news.
You are next, Mr. Darcy. How very ill Miss Eliza Bennet looks this afternoon, don't you think? She is grown so brown and coarse. I should not have known her again.
I see no other alteration than her being rather tanned. No miraculous consequence of travelling in the summer.
I must confess, I never could see any beauty in her. I believe you thought her to be rather pretty at one time.
Yes, but that was only when I first knew her.
Oh, yes?
I now consider her to be one of the handsomest women of my acquaintance.
I beg your pardon, but we must leave at once. We have not an instant to lose.
What has happened?
I've just had a letter from my sister Jane with the most horrid news.
Goodness, what is the matter?
It cannot be concealed. My youngest sister Lydia has run away to Brighton. She has thrown herself into the power of Mr. Wickham.
And what has been done? What has been attempted to recover her?
My father has gone to look for them, but has found no trace. Jane has written to beg me to come home at once. Which is all my fault. If only I told what I knew of him.
You must go at once. We shall not detain you.
Any news of the fugitives? Not yet. And how is Mamma? How are you all?
Mother is tolerably well. I'll bring her out.
Unhappy as the event must be for Lydia, we may draw from it this useful lesson. That loss of virtue in a female is irretrievable. That one false step involves her in endless ruin. That her reputation is no less brittle than it is beautiful. And she cannot be too much guarded in her behavior towards the other sex.
Thank you, Mary, for the thought.
If I had been able to carry my point of going to Brighton with all my family, this would not have happened. But I was overruled, as I always am. And now here's Mr. Bennet gone away, and I know he will fight Mr. Wickham. And then he will be killed. And what is to become of us all? The Conses will throw us out before his body is cold in its grave. And if your Uncle Gardiner cannot force Wickham to marry Lydia, we shall be ruined.
Father and uncle will recover Lydia, Mother. Though you are right to prepare for the worst, there is no occasion to look on it as certain.
Write to your uncle at once, Elizabeth. Tell him, above all things, to keep Mr. Bennet from fighting. Do not let him fight. He will lose for certain. And then we will be destitute.
I will write to him now.
He must find them wherever they are. And if they are not already married, he must force them to marry. And tell Mr. Bennet what a dreadful state I am in.
such tremblings, such flutterings all over me, such spasms in my side, and pains in my head, and beatings at my heart.
I will entreat father to return home at once.
Then who will find Mr. Wickham and force him to marry her?
Jane, had we been a secret, if we had only told what we knew of him, this would have never happened to poor Lydia. Stupid, stupid girl.
They say Mr. Wickham has left debts all over the village. You must not tell Mamma. His gambling debts in Brighton constitute nearly £1,000.
Ew! It's Mr. Collins! Mary!
Mr. Collins, I can guess why you are here. Charlotte?
Eliza?
Cousin Elizabeth, it would be a pleasure to see you. Under different circumstances.
I wish that I could share your sentiment.
Be assured that Mrs. Collins and myself sincerely sympathize with you in your present distress, which must be of the bitterest kind, as it proceeds from a cause which no time can remove.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. It is a distressing situation for us all.
I have related the entire affair to my patroness, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, who agrees that this false step will no doubt prove injurious to the fortunes of you and your unmarried sisters. As Lady Catherine herself condescendingly says, the death of your sister would have been a blessing in comparison to this.
I beg your pardon.
And this consideration leads me to reflect, with some satisfaction, on a certain event of last November. For had it been otherwise, I might have been involved in all your present sorrow and disgrace.
Mr. Collins!
And so I advise you, console yourself as much as possible. Throw off your unworthy sister from your affections forever, and leave her to reap the fruits of her own heinous offense.
Are you quite finished, Mr. Collins? And Mrs. Collins, have you anything to add? Then pray, sir, madam, leave my family in peace. Your advice is no advice, and your consolation no comfort. Good day to you both.
Miss Bennet, I am not accustomed
Off with you, off with you! Begone! Go away, Mr. Collins! What is it?
Liza, please. For better or worse, he is my husband. It is my duty to stand by him even when he is narrow-minded and foolish. Tell me that you understand.
And a good day to you, Mrs. Collins.
In times of difficulty, one cannot see too little of one's neighbours.
Father! Have you news? Have you seen Lydia?
Let me rest before I face your mother's nerves.
I cannot imagine what you have suffered.
Say nothing of that. Who should suffer but myself? It has been my own doing, and I ought to feel it. Now, Lizzie, let me once in my life feel how much I have been to blame.
Papa, you are home!
I suppose you will be next to run away, Kitty.
I am not going to run away, Papa. If I were to go to Brighton...
What? You go to Brighton? I would not trust you so near a deceased ball for £50. No, Kitty, at last I have learnt to be cautious, and you shall feel it. No officers will be allowed to pass through the village. The balls will be strictly prohibited. And you are never to stir out of doors till you can prove you've spent 10 minutes of every day in a rational manner. There. Do not make yourself unhappy. If you are a good girl, we will revisit the matter in 10 years.
Uncle's carriage is here, and Lydia and Wickham are in it. I shall fetch Mamma so she may hear the news.
And they are married. You see, Lizzie, it was wrong of us to doubt his intentions.
Let us hear what Uncle has to say before we acquit him.
Is it true, Uncle, that they are married?
Only this morning, after I had made arrangements on your behalf, brother. I hope you'll find them acceptable.
But they've been gone for over 2 weeks. Were they not married all that time?
I do not believe they had any intention of marrying, but we negotiated a financial settlement to bring it about. Brother, you need only show Lydia her equal share of £4,000 secured among your children and £100 a year during your life.
I will be sorry to have a fool for a son.
What can you mean, Father?
Wickham's a fool if he takes Lydia for a farthing less than £10,000.
Can it be possible that he has married her?
He has. Your aunt and I were witnesses to it. They are to leave tonight for Newcastle, where he will take up a new post in the regiment. I must write to his captain immediately. May I beg use of your library?
Of course, brother. Thank you for all that you have done. It pains me to admit it, but I am glad this is all over. With so little inconvenience on my side. I can only imagine how much money your uncle has laid down to bring it about.
Aunt and uncle are not rich, Father. They've done this at the expense of their own comfort.
Prevail upon your aunts to disclose the sum, Eliza, so I may begin to repay them.
Don't worry. I'm certain this affair will pass and all will be well again. You'll see. Aunt and Uncle Gardiner have arrived with Lydia and Mr. Wickham. They are married.
Madam, he will give her nothing.
You? I will do it myself then. My dear Lydia, where is she?
Mama, you must know that we owe this all to Uncle Gardiner.
He knows that we cannot repay him, but thanks to his kindness and generosity, Lydia is married and provided for.
Well, it is just as right. Who should do it but her own uncle? Well, I am happy. A daughter married and only just 16. Where is she? Where is my baby girl?
Here, Mama. Well, who will be the first to congratulate me? Kitty. Larry. Mama.
My baby! How well married suits you. I always knew you'd be the first to get married.
Isn't it funny? And Lizzie and Jane well past 20. When I went away, I'm sure I had no more idea of being married till I came back again. But I thought it would be good fun if I was.
Now, tomorrow we will find you a house of proper size and importance. Hayes Park might do if the Gouldings would quit it. Or the Great Stoke House, if the drawing room were bigger. But Ashworth is too far off.
Mrs. Bennet, a word. Before you take any or all these houses for your son and daughter, let us come to a right understanding. Into one house in this neighbourhood they shall never have admittance.
Pray, which one?
This one.
I do not understand you.
And not a guinea will I give you to buy them clothes or china or hire servants or any other token of affection to mark the occasion.
I do not comprehend you, sir. How can she marry without new clothes? It would be a disgrace.
The only disgrace is the scandal into which this entire family is now implicated. It cannot be erased. Lydia has jeopardized the future happiness of your other, more deserving daughters.
Scandal, whatever can you mean?
I will not hear another word on the subject, madam.
But I...
Not another word.
Lydia and Wickham are to join the regiment in Newcastle, Mama.
In the north? She may as well be banished.
I am sick to death of this folly.
Oh, Lizzie, have you admired my ring yet? Don't you envy me? I never gave you an account of my wedding, I believe.
I think there cannot be too little said on the subject.
Law, you are so strange. But I must tell you how it went off. We were married at St. Clement's, and it was settled that we should all be there by 11 o'clock. But then Uncle was called away on some business, and I was certain we would be late. But then I recollected afterwards that even if he had been prevented going, the wedding need not be put off, for Mr. Darcy might have done as well.
Mr. Darcy? Mr. Darcy was at your wedding?
Oh yes, he was to come there with Mr. Wickham, you know. Gracious me, I quite forgot. I ought not to have said a word. I promise. What will Mr. Wickham say? Oh, don't tell Wickham, for he will be very angry. It was to be such a secret. Oh, Kitty, I almost forgot. I have a present for you from Brighton in the carriage. It's such a pretty hat box for my new hat. It seemed a shame to throw it away.
Aunt, may I speak to you?
Of course, Lizzie. What is it?
Can you help me understand how such a stranger to our family as Mr. Darcy happened to be at Lydia's wedding?
What? Your uncle and I thought you knew. We couldn't reveal it to your father, of course, but, well, we only went ahead with Mr. Darcy's plan because we thought you knew.
Knew what? Mr. Darcy's plan? What plan?
Can it be that you're truly ignorant? Well, I am utterly surprised. Mr. Darcy called on your uncle as soon as he arrived.
But why?
He had made his own inquiries and found out where your sister and Wickham were staying. He tried to convince Lydia to come away with him, but she would not. And he found out that Wickham had no intention of marrying her. Mr. Darcy felt it was his duty to step forward and remedy an evil he himself had brought about.
What evil?
That he had not made Wickham's worthlessness known because he felt it beneath his dignity to lay his private actions open to the world.
But how did he do it?
He paid Wickham to marry Lydia and made all the arrangements and settled Wickham's debts of over £2,000. He forced your uncle to take credit for the settlement, We only agreed because we knew Mr. Darcy had another interest he wished to protect. There, I have told you everything.
But then we owe everything to Mr. Darcy.
There was nothing done that Mr. Darcy did not do himself. Now, Eliza, will you be very angry with me if I take the opportunity to say what I was never bold enough to say before? How much I like him. All he wants was a little liveliness, and that his wife may teach him. Oh, here comes Wickham. Shall I stay? Will there be bloodshed?
No, thank you, Aunt. I'll be fine.
I'm sorry. Did I interrupt your conversation?
You did. But it's been so long since we've spoken, Mr. Wickham, and I'm so anxious to hear all of your news.
Ah. Yes. Eliza, allow me to explain.
Please do. I long to understand how the happy circumstance of your marriage to my sister came about. It is not like you to be tongue-tied, Mr. Wickham. Or is it? It is so hard to tell what you are like. Well, perhaps some other time. Until then, brother, I wish you every happiness.
Mr. Wickham! How long will you be staying at Newcastle?
Lord, 2 or 3 years perhaps.
2 or 3 years?
I am glad to hear it.
Yes. Well.
Wickham! Where have you got to? Come at once, Wickham. I want to fetch my dressing table from my room.
You may remain in the garden, daughter, but never again will you set a foot in the house.
But, Papa... Mama... Well then, Wickham, you'll just have to buy me a new dressing table. The old one was ugly in any case. I never cared for it one bit.
'Tis time you were off. Come along, Mr. Wickham. Mrs. Wickham.
Oh, how well that sounds, Mrs. Wickham. Oh, look, I have goosebumps. Well, goodbye. Goodbye.
What a valuable son-in-law. He simpers and smirks and makes love to us all.
I can't believe my darling Lydia is gone. I don't think I can bear it.
Well, you must do your best to be strong, because I'm afraid that there is more bad news. You must prepare to lose another daughter.
Another? What can you mean?
We passed through the village on the way here, and who do you think we met on his way to Netherfield? Mr. Bingley!
I do
Darcy was with him.
I will invite them both to dine. How could I not? Mr. Darcy has 10,000 a year. He is not the sort of man to whom one can deny anything. We must have 3 full courses, or we will be ridiculed. I will fly at once to cook.
Well, I'm glad you will dine here. Then everyone will see that we meet only as common, different acquaintances.
Yes, very indifferent indeed.
But, Lizzie, you must not look at me that way. You must not suspect me. It mortifies me.
Oh, Jane, take care.
My dear Lizzie, you cannot think me so weak as to be in danger now.
I think you to be in danger of making him as much in love with you as ever.
What a perfect evening. Don't you agree, Mr. Bennet? Jane has never looked more beautiful. And just look at them together, just as I had planned. The mouse is sniffing at the cheese. Oh, dear me, I forgot the cheese!
Another man for you, and I could see you as happy.
I could never be as happy as you, Jane. Until I have your goodness, I can never have your happiness.
You see, everything works out in the end. I told you so.
Mr. Bingley, am I to call you brother? I will be stern with you. You must make Jane perfectly happy, or you will have to answer to me.
It will be the business of my life to fulfill your expectations.
Perhaps Jane and Mr. Bingley could be persuaded to stage a reenactment at your leisure.
Do not tease me thus, Mr. Bennet. I knew it. I knew it. I knew Jane could not be so beautiful for nothing. 4,000 or 5,000 a year? 2 daughters married in such a short span. Oh, he is the handsomest man. Come along, hurry,
If he does not come to me now, I will give him up forever. If he does not come to me now, I will give him up forever. If he does not come to me now, I will...
What do you think of Jane's match, Lizzie? Is it a good one?
A very good match, Father. It's just, isn't it funny how the pendulum of fortune swings? The whole town will soon be abuzz with Jane's astonishing luck. Yet when Lydia ran away, we were all marked for misfortune.
But that is the purpose of our lives, to make sport for our neighbours. And to laugh at them in our turn. Lizzie,
Yes, Father.
You must promise me something.
Anything.
Jane has made a good match. Mr. Bingley has promised to look after your mother and your sisters when I am gone. So, do you not feel it is your duty?
What are you trying to say, Father?
My child, spare me the grief of seeing you unable to respect your partner in life. I know your disposition. I know you could not be happy unless you truly loved and esteemed your husband, no matter how wealthy he might be. Do anything but marry without affection, my dear. Promise me.
I promise. I will only marry a man I can truly love and truly respect with all my body and soul.
If this is to be the case, he deserves you. Oh, I could not have parted with you to anyone less worthy. Here now, who's this coming?
Oh, Lord, it's Lady Catherine.
What could you be calling on us for, Lizzie? And not at this hour.
I have no idea. Lady Catherine, what a surprise.
You are well, I trust, Miss Bennet.
Very well, thank you. Lady Catherine, this is my father.
I desire to speak to your daughter alone.
Lady Catherine.
You understand why I am here?
In truth, I cannot account for this unexpected honor.
A report of the most alarming nature has reached me. I was told that not only was your sister on the point of being most advantageously married, but that you would, in all likelihood, be soon afterwards united to my own nephew, Mr. Darcy. Though I know this to be a scandalous falsehood, I set out at once, that it might be universally contradicted.
If such a report exists, won't your coming so far be rather a confirmation of it?
Miss Bennet, I insist on being satisfied. Has my nephew made you an offer of marriage?
Your ladyship has declared it to be impossible.
Thoughtless, impotent girl! Mr. Darcy is engaged to my daughter. From their infancy, they have been intended for each other. Now what have you to say?
Only this, that if he is engaged to her, you have no reason to suppose he would make an offer to me.
If you willfully disobey me, I shall sever all relations with my nephew.
This is a heavy misfortune indeed.
Insolence! This is not to be borne! My daughter and my nephew will be married. The upstart pretensions of a young woman without family, fortunes, or connection cannot divide them.
Mr. Darcy's a gentleman. I'm a gentleman's daughter. So far we are equal. If your nephew does not object to my connections, they can mean nothing to you.
Answer me once and for all. Are you engaged to him?
I'm not.
And will you promise me never to enter into such an engagement?
I will make no promise of the kind. Please leave at once.
I have by no means done. I am no stranger to the particulars of your youngest sister's infamous elopement. I know it all. That the young man's marrying her was a patched-up business at the expense of your uncle. Unfeeling, selfish girl. Are you determined to ruin my nephew? Are the shades of Pemberley to be thus polluted?
I'm determined to act only in a manner which will constitute my own happiness. You have now insulted me in every possible method and can have nothing further to say. Good evening.
Do not imagine, Miss Bennet, that your ambitions will ever be gratified. Depend upon it.
I say, Lady Catherine, Miss Bennet, where has Darcy got to?
I don't know.
Did he say he was leaving?
He did not say a word to me all evening. Amidst all the celebration, he just...
I see.
Indeed, he might have congratulated you, even if he disapproved of the match.
Disapproved? Without Darcy, I never would have got up the courage to ask for Jane's hand. It is he who should be congratulated.
But it is he who kept you from her in the first place.
Yes, I know. He told me.
He did?
The day we saw you at Pemberley, we had it out, a real fisticuffs. I was very angry. But he told me how wrong he was and that he was sorry, and I forgave him, and that's about it, really.
God bless you, Mr. Bingley.
Charles, God bless you too, sister. May I call you sister? I will see you tomorrow, then. Good night.
Good night.
Miss Bennet.
Before we go any further, I must thank you for your unexampled kindness toward my family, your compassion towards poor Lydia. I've been so anxious to tell you how grateful I am on behalf of my family.
Your family owes me nothing. I thought only of you.
You left us tonight without a word. I thought perhaps I'd offended you.
I'm afraid I lost my nerve.
That must be an unfamiliar sensation to you, Mr. Darcy.
Yes, I will no doubt get used to it now that I have been properly humbled.
Humbled?
I shall never forget your words. Had you behaved in a more gentlemanlike manner. How that phrase has tortured me.
I said many things that day which I regret, and know now to be false. And other things.
That I am the last man on earth whom you could ever be prevailed upon to marry.
Yes.
And that there was no conceivable way in which I might offer you my hand, which might compel you to accept.
Something like that, yes. Things which I thought to be true until the moment I said the words aloud.
You are too generous to trifle with me. My wishes are unchanged, but one word from you will silence me on the subject forever.
If the subject on which you speak of is love, I beg you not to be silenced on my account.
You have conquered me, Miss Bennet, with your beauty, your wit, your intelligence, your compassion. Stone by stone, you have dismantled the walls of the fortress that I had built around my heart. I can no longer hide my emotions. I stand in the open, unguarded, at your mercy. I love you. I love you. I am your captive. I beg you, release me from my suspense.
Mr. Darcy, might it be helpful to put your desires in the form of a question?
Dearest, loveliest Elizabeth, will you do me the great honor of becoming my wife?
Yes, Mr. Darcy, yes! Oh.
sufficiently gentlemanlike.